Hey everyone, factoring into today's video, we're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days in today's video, and then we'll have a look at the CFSV2 for, it'll cover most of March actually going on into next month. So I've got this little cold snap going on right now. It's nothing overly dramatic, but it is producing some cold and frost nights. Of course, by day, it's generally not too bad, unless it's cloudy. The sun is gaining strength very rapidly now. The sun will be returning to our hemisphere in March. Once we get past the 21st of March, the sun will be past the equator, back in the northern hemisphere, so the days will be longer than nights from next month onwards. And that means that because the sun is coming back up to us, it's gaining in strength very rapidly. So by day, at this time of year when it's sunny, it's going to be generally, unless we're in a very cold air mass, going to generally be quite reasonable in terms of the temperature. But at night, as soon as the sun goes away, as soon as it sets, it turns very cold. The heat quickly radiates out into space, and we get these frosty nights. So we've sort of got frosty nights being offset by relatively mild days, just a little bit below average in some places by day. And that's particularly true if it's cloudy. So I think it's probably going to be enough to prevent us having the warmest winter on record. It's going to be a really close run thing, but in terms of the central England temperature anyway, I think that record mild winter from a long time ago, 1868, 1869, is just going to hold on. If you hadn't had this little cold snap, I think it probably would have fallen, and this would have been the warmest winter on record. But because of this little cold snap, I think it'll probably be just about enough to stop us breaking the very long-standing and old record mild winter from 1868, 1869. That's for Central England. I'm not sure about the UK-wide temperature things though, because they don't go as far back. I think they only go back to 1910. So it could be that UK-wide we break the record, I'm not sure. But in the Central England region, I think we're just going to avoid breaking the record. So I'll get on with all the details in a second. Before I get on with that though, just to say about the ads, there's 6 articles on all the pages. Have a browse widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that are interesting. Thanks so much for doing that. You're probably noticing more ads on most pages from Amazon. These are not related to Gav Shop. Gav Shop is still at the website. I don't normally talk about it except on the run up to Christmas, but it is still there. The page that is Gav Shop. So if you've got any shop to do at Amazon, you can still click through the Amazon banners within the page. This Gav Shop and go off and do your Amazon shopping, and we get a revenue fee because you do that. Of course, I'll be talking about that much more as we get up towards the end of the year. But the other ads that are appearing on most of the pages at the moment from Amazon are just simple display and pay-per-click ads. So it means that we get a revenue fee just by them being there and by you clicking them. But you don't need to do any shopping or anything like that with them. I thought I'd just better explain what's going on there. We're just trialling them out. So for this video, we'll start on Central England temperature. So this is how we stand at Hadley provisional up to the 24th. So up to, yes, it just updated about 1 minute ago. We currently stand at 5.4, which is an anomaly of 1.7 degrees above average. So still significantly above average even this month, and it hasn't really felt that mild a month to me, but there we go. The numbers don't lie, and we're still over 1.5 degrees above average. Of course, this is set against 61 to 1990, that old and cold temperature average that encompasses the really cold decade of the 1960s. We went through a very cold decade in the 1960s, and this does cover that. So if you compare this against a more modern average, say 81 to 2010, the anomaly wouldn't be as great as that. But nevertheless, it's still milder than average, and this will remain, despite this cold snap that we're having, this will remain significantly milder than average. So it's going to be one of the mildest winters on record anyway, if not the mildest. So the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks look like this. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average. So we are below average right now, quite significantly so really. We're a long way under the red line. Given how cold it is, you probably, how much colder than average is, you probably expect this to be a bit colder in terms of the temperature, but we have to factor in, as I was just explaining, the sun is returning to our hemisphere and it's gaining strength, and also because it's been such a very mild winter, we just don't have the legacy of the cold temperatures around us. So the seas around us aren't cold. The ground hasn't had any snow on it to speak of away from mountainous regions. Been very little frost as well. So the ground isn't particularly cold. All these things do make a difference, especially this late on in the winter when the sun is gaining strength. If we've had a lot of cold weather up to this point, then it would be significantly colder today than it is when you go outside. But we're going to keep it below average for the rest of the week and into weekend. So next week we'll see a tick up in the temperatures. I don't think it'll last too long, but on Tuesday we'll bring a milder pusher there in off the Atlantic, but after that generally cooling down again. It looks a bit cool really as we're going on in the start of March. Of course the date's on the spot of the chart. This is the 1st of March just here. So yeah, I mean it's not going to be anything overly dramatically cold for the next couple of weeks, but generally I think the trend is rather cool and a bit below average as we're going into March. Also, precipitation is coming back. I'll just get rid of those lines. So a lot of dry weather for the rest of this week and into weekend. But as we go into next week, the rainfall spikes, the precipitation spikes do return. So we're going to see more bouts of rain starting to push in off the Atlantic. And with temperatures being a little bit cooler than average, of course, that precipitation with cooler than average temperature could provide some wintry conditions if the soundings, if you like, all come together. Remember, we'll look at the dew points, you have air temperatures, and that kind of thing. Everything has to come together. And the further on we get, of course, the harder it gets to achieve snow. But nevertheless, we can get snow in March and even get it in April. So it's not too late to get some wintry conditions. The temperature anomaly for the coming week is going from the 25th of February through to the 4th of March. Looks below average. Most of Western and Northern Europe can have below average as well. The milder than average temperature anomalies are in the east of Europe. The precipitation anomaly looks like this, so it's going to be a bit drier than average for the coming week. Remember, this is going from today through to next Friday. Over the next few days, I would expect this will trend a bit wetter, actually, as we lose the dry weather that we've got right now and over the weekend. But for the coming week, still looks a bit drier than average generally. Here's the GFS then for Monday. I've got a ridge of high pressure through the country, quite cold air is within that. Low pressure is starting to push in off the Atlantic there, and that brings us quite a bout of rain as we go through Monday night and in Tuesday. Now this is running into cold air, so for the north it might produce some snow on the northern edge, but there's a very big warm sector coming in with this. This is the upper air temperatures. You see these yellow colours bathing the country at midnight on Tuesday, indicating a very large warm sector. When the upper air temperatures go above 0 degrees at 850 HPA, it can't snow. It can never snow when temperatures are above freezing or at freezing or above freezing at 850 HPA. You can get freezing rain. If it's cold enough on the surface, then the rain can fall down onto the ground and then freeze on impact. That's very unusual for this country. You don't tend to get much freezing rain and sheet ice events. I remember one event in January 1996 that was quite extraordinary. The whole, all surfaces, the whole of the ground, trees, everything else, power lines were bathed and covered in a glaze of ice. It was quite spectacular, but very deadly. We don't get it very often in this country, and we're not going to get it this time either. I'm digressing with that. But whenever the 850 temperatures go into these yellow colours, it won't snow. So this is really just a band of rain coming in Monday and into Tuesday. Wednesday, we'll see a cooler push coming back from the northwest around this area of low pressure. And as that low pressure moves down the North Sea, could turn winds into the north. So that could bring colder air into the north and east, particularly with some wintry potential on Thursday. And then we try and build a bit of a ridge on Friday. Looks a very changeable week, really, next week, with the patterns changing day by day. We tried to build a bit of a ridge on Friday, but that's swept aside as we go into the first weekend of March with another bout of wet and windy weather sweeping in on Saturday the 5th. And then Sunday the 6th, low pressure firmly in control. This is day 10. Low pressure firmly in control wet and windy. And eventually, the GFS wants to move that low pressure down to the south and switch the winds into the east or the northeast. That could bring colder air in from the north and northeast. That's beyond day 10, a very long way out. But just a suggestion of a bit of northern blocking across Scandinavia as well, possibly turning winds into the east. The east earth looks like this, a bit of a ridge to start next week, so still generally dry and cold. Then low pressure comes in, brings a bout of rain Monday to Tuesday, sunshine and showers on a cooler northwesterly wind for Wednesday and Thursday. Wind's turning a bit into the north, so that could bring some snow showers into the north and the east on Thursday. Then Friday and on into weekend, very unsettled conditions with low pressure driving in off the Atlantic, but nothing overly cold showing up there. The Canadian model looking like this. Monday has that little ridge, keeping the dry and chilly conditions going. First day of March on Tuesday brings wet and windy weather across the country. Could be preceded by snow over Pennines and Scottish Mountains, but generally it is just rain moving in. And then middle part of next week we go sunshine and showers in that westerly wind. This is also going for low pressure to run down the North Sea Wednesday into Thursday, turning the winds into the north. So this, with the GFS, suggests colder air coming in from the north through the middle part of next week with some wintry potential. Then the high pressure builds back in from the Atlantic for a time, but day 10 we're back to low pressure driving in, very unsettled conditions. So it is a changeable start to March, most definitely, with most days showing a different weather pattern, sometimes dry and chilly, sometimes wet and quite windy. Let's have a look at the CFS V2 before we go. These are the 500 millibar high dynamics broken down into weekly periods. The first week period will be taking us from the 25th of February through to the 2nd of March. What we see for the coming week is that got quite a bit of blocking to the north and also out in the Atlantic, and a trough of low pressure generally centred across central east parts of Europe. So it's fairly cool, really, this, the flow going a bit like that. I think it'll be quite a cool week coming up next week, as we saw in the ensembles, despite that milder blip that occurs around Tuesday. Generally, temperatures will be a little bit below average and quite unsettled through the course of next week. The second week, the 3rd through to the 9th of March, shows low pressure gain across central parts of Europe, ridging through the central Atlantic and going up to the north as well. So again, we remain quite chilly here. The flow is probably going a bit like that. So it's going to the second week of March, I think, or the second week, weekly period. I think we're probably still fairly cool there. And the flow generally would be coming down from a north or a northeasterly type direction, a bit like that. And then week 3, the 10th through to 16th of March, shows a ridge centred to the north of us. Scandinavia, between Scandinavia and Iceland to the north of Scotland, probably bringing in a direct easterly there. Now, it will very much depend what the temperatures are like on the continent as to whether this would be particularly cold or not. But I think that's probably an easterly flow coming through there, with the trough centred through the Mediterranean and down across Spain as well. So really quite block conditions indeed going through to that week. And then week 4, which is the 17th to the 23rd of March, that looks very similar as well. If we'd had these weather patterns in December, this winter would have been very, very, very different. But of course, it's late on now. This is March, and we see a ridge of high pressure centred around Iceland and Greenland this time. Trough of low pressure across the east of Europe. So again, I think the flow is going a bit like that. We're still on the cold side of the jet, and at the very least, I would expect, if the weather patterns did come off like this, I would expect a cooler than average March flow, probably coming in from the north or the northeast for that one. So pretty cool signals really from the CFS V2 for March. If it came off like that, as I say, I think we would probably get our first cooler than average month since September last year. So and there will be some pretty damaging late frost as well. It will be a delayed spring. Really a delayed start to the spring if things came off like that. Of course, it's all very highly experimental with these longer range models, and we'll look in more detail at CFS V2 and the Japanese model, the JMA, tomorrow when we do the official month-ahead look ahead with the JMA update. But coming back to the next week to 10 days, I think we'll have a very changeable period. A lot of dry and settled weather and quite cool weather the rest of this week and the weekend, just about hanging on inside next week. Then on Tuesday, it'll turn much more unsettled with a band of rain coming in from the Atlantic. After that, it's changeable. There'll be some rain, some dry days, and we could get a bit of a colder snap later next week. Reading between all of these miles, I think Wednesday, Thursday, maybe into Friday, something like that next week, we might get a bit of a colder push from the north, probably not lasting too long. Right, that's it for now, and thanks for watching.